Mm-hmm.
Already. I thought for a second you might have tapped out for streaming for 3 hours.
Oh, you thought I was online?
Yeah.
I am tired.
Was that 3 hours ago? Did I read that right on your channel?
Yeah.
Wow. So you were up at like 2 a.m.?
I you ever have a dream that you don't realize you're dreaming?
Yep.
I say that because there's been times where maybe once that I can remember where I had a dream and things were so weird that I'm like, yo, this got to be a dream. And I was able to snap out of my sleep. But you ever have a dream where like you don't know it's a dream, but you hear the audio and the audio becomes part of your dream, like an alarm going off or something happening while you're sleeping, but even though you hear it, it becomes part of your dream and you play off of it.
I don't know. I don't know if I've had that sensation before, but I might have.
I had a really effed up dream. It wasn't a nightmare; it was just an effed up dream,
Yeah.
and I was really disturbed. And like I heard like an alarm going off, and I'm like, "Yo, what is that sound?" As I'm dreaming, right? And I'm busy looking for the source of that sound. And then somehow I was able to wake up, and it was my oven alarm going off after like 5 minutes. But the oven was turned off. Don't ask me why it was going off. I don't know.
Hmm. I mean, I've
And
had
so, yeah,
dreams
I was
where
up. So I just started writing code afterwards.
I've had those double inception dreams or whatever where you dream that you're dreaming. So, like, I had a dream that my wife was waking me up and I was pissed that she was waking me up. And then I went back to sleep or whatever, but I couldn't get back to sleep. But then I was in another dream. So,
Uh,
yeah. But I don't know if I've had the alarm ever join in.
yeah. So yesterday, I don't know. I wasn't feeling right, so I wanted to end my day. So I just went to sleep at like 7 o'clock, and then I think if it wasn't for my alarm going off, I think I probably would have slept probably until like 5. That's normally when I get out of bed. Um, but yeah, I woke up at like 3:30, and I was up. Like, that's it. I'll just start writing some code.
So you are following the Mark Wahlberg plan.
How's that work?
No,
He's one of those 5 a.m. people.
no, he goes to bed at 7:30 and wakes up at 2:30.
To do what? To memorize scripts?
No, to work out and get all of his stuff in.
Oh no.
I don't know.
When I work out, I'm social. Like I have to be. I mean, there doesn't have to be people, but I have to be out on the yard, and so I work out on the beach most of the time, and like I just have to be outside, man. Before this whole COVID thing, like I would go to Starbucks and Panera Bread, and I would just start writing code there. I don't know. I just don't like being isolated in order to be productive and do things that are challenging that I really don't look forward to doing. I feel like I'm incentivized if I'm out there in a social arena or even at a park. I just don't like being inside working out or programming, but I feel like we have these constraints now.
Even in Florida, I thought Florida was pretty open.
It so it depends on the area that you're in. So like I'm in Miami Beach, and like there's no seating inside. There's dining in restaurants, right? You could dine in at restaurants, but cafes like Starbucks, no. And so I think it's the policy of some of these chains if they want to have dine-ins or not. And so if you're pulling in, tens of billions of dollars a quarter like Starbucks, then you could probably afford to make that decision. But for mom and pop spots or people barely raking in $1 million, like if the county allows you to have dining, then they're going to go ahead and do it. So, like where I live, Starbucks are still like you could do pickup, but that's it. You can't just post up with your laptop, plug it in the outlet. That's another thing. Like they cover up the outlets in South Beach because homeless people, they'll just come in and charge their phones for like 3 hours and not buy anything, and they'll take up tables, and it'll be like a lot of them, a lot of homeless people, right? And so they started covering up all the outlets to deter them. But if I go into like maybe Fort Lauderdale, I'm not sure because I haven't been to Starbucks in Fort Lauderdale in a while. But when I was in Fort Lauderdale, just hanging out, they were a lot more relaxed. I didn't see as many face masks out in public like I do down here in Miami Beach. Yep.
Yeah. There's a couple of local restaurants here that sounds like they're going to be closing up. One of them is kind of a long-standing, restaurant here, and they can't survive being shut down this long. Most of their sales were off of liquor, so they can't survive off of just, carry out.
Yeah.
Which is awful. It's something I was thinking about because I saw another post about, so they, like some states and counties and stuff have stopped evictions. And then,
Okay.
there's, yeah.
I see both sides to it, but okay.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is that I can see that it's like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. And really like what would make sense is, oh, you got to stop rent collection in general, but then you leave these people who are the rent collectors out to dry. They have to maintain the buildings and stuff like that. So
yeah, unless the state or the Fed is going to write them a check.
Yeah.
Like they look. I'm not the one to attack well-to-do people, but like some of those people, like they did the responsible thing early on. They made decisions that most people wouldn't make. They worked the hours that most people weren't willing to work, and like, yeah, they need to reap the rewards of their blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, it'll get into a political debate, but I think that's why people don't. One of the reasons why people don't side with Democrats, right? Why they were terrified of Obama. You work hard, you do the responsible thing, right? Your lifestyle reflects that you have a long term, 20 years, 30 years in the future, and then when you have that nest egg, the government taxes you hella more and say, oh, these other people, they need more than you do. You'll be okay. And you're like, no, I made sacrifices for this. So, yeah, I think the government should like write a check and like cover their expenses, right? So that they don't have to get evicted, but don't leave the landlords out to not reap what they worked so hard for.
Yeah, but the other part of it too is that it's evictions are one thing, but a lot of landlords are themselves paying rent on the money that they borrowed. It's really if you follow the trail back to it, the banks are the ones that, if you really wanted to make it so that you could relieve someone's rent situation, a lot of cases it starts with making sure the banks don't put a pause on collecting for a mortgage on a rental property or a investment property or whatever.
I mean, like,
and stop collecting interest on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you because one is I'm seeing the surge of homeless people on the streets. Like, I'm seeing it, Like I pretty much live on the beach, and I'm within like a 30-minute, not 30-minute. I'm within like a 1-minute walk to a park, right? Um, and I'm seeing a lot of people sitting on park benches with luggage, and they're not catching a flight, right? They're just taking their luggage with them, and they're just posting up at parks, and they're trying to set up camp at on the beach. And I live in a pretty affluent area, and so it's like part of me is like becoming prejudiced, and I'm like, yo, there's been so many times, about twice a week, I think about calling the police department so they could perform a welfare check on someone that's homeless that's like using the beach shower that I have to like go past it whenever I want to clear my head on the beach in the morning. And it's hard. I know I'm speaking of luxurious problems based on the position that I'm in, but it's like, you know, I don't know if you've ever been to Cleveland, like especially the East Side, but it's like there's a reason why I fired my local government and moved down here to South Florida because I wanted opportunity. I wanted to get away from the drugs, the violence, the just the issues there. And it's like I don't want that stuff to follow me. I don't want to be stepping over syringes, and I won't tell you how many used condoms I see almost every single day when I'm on the beach. Like I don't want that stuff to follow me. And when I see, I don't know within economics what that principle or law is, where if one person does it, who cares? But if there's a number of people that do what that one person does, it becomes a problem. I don't know if that was macroeconomics that I learned, whatever the name of that principle was, but I don't want them. I'll say them, right? Because this is kind of like the prejudice coming in me. I don't want homeless people, in which some of them are responsible, but others they have mental issues, and it is what it is. I don't want them thinking it's okay to set up shop where I spend hella money to live and have a lifestyle, and I want to raise my family here, and all of a sudden it's the property value goes down. There's more crime. There's more police that have to work. Like I don't want that. And it sounds probably I know it sounds very arrogant of me, and I sound like a Ken or a male version of a Karen. But it's like I didn't move down here just so I could observe issues, right? And so it's kind of like I get it. If I were homeless, I would want a place that gave me peace of mind, that's chill, that there wasn't a whole bunch of drug addicts near me. Yeah, I would go to a park, right? Somewhere nice. But I'm not homeless right now. And it's like I don't want to see that where I live. And I see it coming, and I don't know how to handle it because I'm having a guilt trip of should I really call the police department for them to do a welfare check when I just don't want them near me, right? And it's like anybody can get into that situation. And when you hit that situation, the probability of that going into a downward spiral versus you coming out of it and growing from it, it's a higher probability of a downward spiral. Things are only going to get worse, right? And so, like, I'm kind of like, I don't know if empathetic. I'm kind of sympathetic to what they're going through, but I don't want to see that where I'm at. You know, it's like when you watch those infomercials with the little Somalian boys with the flies all over their face and the pot bellies, and you're like, damn, that's stuffed up. And you change the channel because you don't want to see it, right? Out of sight, out of mind. So I don't know. I guess I'm kind of torn, man. Like I feel bad, but I don't want to see that where I live at. So
yeah,
I'm a horrible person, I know, but it's like
no, I think that's just the natural reaction to things. You know, it probably comes from the same place that you know, people who take on like racist views come from. It's an inborn natural thing that we want things to be, you know, the way we want to see them, and when they're not, it's, you know, it's something you kind of rail against. I mean, it's a natural human emotion. First thing I would say is if you have a homeless person taking a shower, don't do a welfare check on that person.
oh no. I've called the police before. I was walking my dog early in the morning, and like so where I live, there's a beach shower, right?
Hmm.
I walk past it, and I walk away from it every single time I go to the beach and come back from the beach. And like one time I was walking my dog, and I seen this homeless dude like taking the ish, like dookie in the shower thing,
Yeah,
right?
that's different. Yeah.
And I'm like, and it caught me off guard, right? It's like if someone says something really, really disrespectful that's really blatant, and you're like, you just pause, like, because you got to process what just happened. I'm like, I know this dude is not boo booing literally in front of me at the shower stall. And it's like, I live in an affluent area. Like, I live in a Jewish, Orthodox Jewish like neighborhood. Like, they're not going to stand for that. And so, like, the first thing I'm like, how does this person think it's okay for him to come over here and then take an ish where I live? Right. So I'll call the police on that. And like the police know me. They do. For good and for bad. And so like the thing is I don't know if you've been keeping up or watching like propaganda videos on Los Angeles and the problems that they're having with homelessness. But
Yeah, more San Francisco and stuff. But
yeah, to summarize, and maybe even New York City, is these people are paying like $3,000, $4,000 for a one bedroom, but it's location, location, location.
Mhm.
And like the pandemic, everything shuts down, right? That if you sell your car and you don't need a car, you just walk or take a subway. Well, now everything's closed. The social networks, well, social distancing, you're not allowed to associate with people, and so like all of a sudden they're starting to have like these tents all around where they live, but they're still paying like $3,000, $4,000 a month. But what are they paying for? They can't even go to networking events. They can't socialize, but they see homeless people setting up shop all around where they live, and now it's bringing down the value, but they're still paying the same rent. They're just bringing down the property value of the owners. And so the reason why I say all that is that stuff doesn't happen overnight, right? You don't wake up and now you have a tent city in your backyard. No,
Oh,
it gradually happens over years. And so like I feel like I should be like proactive and like resist it and get the police involved to do welfare checks, right? Because that's me being a kin. And hopefully when they do a welfare check and the people don't know their rights, then the police will search their bags, find drugs, and then they go away for weeks or months at a time. So like I mean I feel guilty for thinking about it, but like this is my home. And real talk, they're trying to make they're trying to come over here and make this their home at the expense of things that I don't want to see, right? Drug
mhm.
use, litter, um, the crime will go up because I'm sure a significant number of homeless people like how can you not have mental illness when you have to deal with the stress that they have, right? I would have it, right? And so I don't know. I'm venting because I see it coming and I don't want it to come because I mean I have a family now. Like I have a kid, and I want to be able to raise my family here without having to teach my son how to step over syringes and use condoms. I don't want to deal with that. So
Well, is there anything in a positive light that you could do other than calling police? Any way to
no, well, in the
sponsor
positive
people
way,
in terms of getting these people off or getting them even temporary shelters somewheres where that
oh,
won't happen?
I can tell through your facial expressions that you you respectfully disagree with my thought process. I could
No,
just
no,
tell.
no, no. No, it's you know, I think that I've gotten very conscious about walking on eggshells about certain things.
Oh, so you,
um,
yeah.
mostly because it's yeah, it's hard to
You,
express
you don't want to be
positions.
what's that?
Canceled.
You don't want to be canceled.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
oh, that's a subject all within itself. Of do you really silence yourself and let something that you perceive as a problem grow worse just to appease a mob mentality? Are you really performing? Are you doing a disservice by letting mob mentality prevail and what you believe is ethical? Right? We're not talking about transgender. We're not talking about racism. We're talking about the areas that we live, that we made a conscious decision to live, pay our taxes, and we're in the era where whatever people's past decisions were, the consequences have been exacerbated, right? If I'm using that term correctly, based on this pandemic, and now people are in survival mode. I get that, but I also need to look out for myself, for my family, and it's not in my interest to have a tent city across the street from where I live. It's not. I, I there's other people that depend on me now. They do, and it just can't be ignored, right? So you were asking the question of, well, besides being a kin and calling the cops to perform a welfare check, um, is is there anything that I could do to help address the problem? And I think I understand that question. It's just I've learned through experience of one being arrested for something that I don't think was an arrestable offense, but it's on my record. It's like I avoid confrontation, man. I do, right? And so, like, I see a lot of ignorant things down here. And there's been times where I walked away from people that have like challenged me physically just because I can't afford to catch a felony. I can't afford to have a violent record. I can't, right? Just given my skin color and my profession, I can't do it. And
Mhm.
so like I made the conscious decision to be hands off. And if I'm going to be prosecuted for confronting things that I disagree with, that I know that aren't right, but I'm not the authority figure to put my hands on somebody or to confront somebody that may not be mentally there, and so it's only going to escalate, and I haven't really been trained to de-escalate, right? Then I feel like, how successful will I really be if I confront the problem, right? And you may say, well, you don't necessarily have to confront by getting in people's faces and telling them to pick up that trash or take down their tents. You can like feed them or give them money, and it's like, well, I'm a taxpayer, and that's not my job. That's the government's job. That's why I pay them taxes, because if I don't, they're going to hold me at gunpoint and kidnap me and throw me inside a cage. So it's like that's what the government is for, regardless of if they're competent or not. Um, I really don't know what to do, but to just complain and vent. I don't know what I really have the power to do without getting in trouble myself. You know,
Yeah. Well, you could move.
move where? I live in a nice area already. They're coming over here because they want to be in a nice area. They want to feel safe,
I don't
right?
know.
And
What's
it
what's the
and it
next?
may be okay for one person, but then
Yeah.
but when people see that one person is succeeding, right? Then other people come, and then you have San Francisco, then you have LA, right? And it's like, no, man, I don't want to keep doing that. I don't.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I suppose any nice area where there's public services, you're going to find, a subset of. I guess I wonder with when the pandemic ends if that's going to bounce back or not. In terms of people, will find jobs and stuff, Or if
No,
it becomes a cycle where now that they've become homeless, they can't get a job because they're homeless or whatever. So then they're
yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been homeless before, but like
no.
if you, I've been kicked out the house before and had no clue where I was going to shower at, what I was going to do, right? Um, but like to what you said, like what's the success rate of people that become home, find themselves homeless, and then they're able to fight their way out of it, right? And it has to be extremely low. Like, like how do you even interview face to face and mask what you've been through? How do
Yeah.
you do you have $20 to go to the laundromat and get that suit pressed? Do you even have a suit anymore? How much can you really take with you, right? When you have no home, like it's I can't see someone. I know there's success stories, but like once you become homeless, like honestly, I believe it's probably like the one percenters that actually like get out of it and are able to return back to normal life of middle class. Like I don't see a way.
You just got to join the rest or join us elites out in the rural areas. Actually, if you moved
If
here,
I were homeless,
no, there's
I would pay my last $200 on genealogy, see how much Native American I have in me, if any, and then try to make an argument to move to a reservation, and hopefully I'll be taken care of.
I
Hey,
don't
Ro,
think you. Yeah, I don't know if you have to be Indian to live on a reservation.
I identify as Native American.
Yeah. But to operate a casino here you do, but I don't know. I think people do live on the reservations, but I don't know.
Yeah, man. In
But it's
other
cold
news,
up here. I don't know if anybody would. There are homeless people in Minnesota. It's just comparatively, I mean, you don't want to be outside here in the
yeah,
winter.
here's the difference. And I saw the same thing with Hawaii, where, and I've heard this from so many people, where states or cities will pay for people's like Greyhound bus fare to leave, right? And
Mhm.
so supposedly, like here in South Florida, you have homeless people that are snowbirds, where like they'll take a Greyhound to be homeless in Miami while it's warm, and then go back to wherever they're from. I don't know if it's New York. I don't know if it's Philly. I don't know if it's Cleveland, Detroit, and they'll go because usually when snowbirds usually go vertical, right? Um, people in like people in Chicago, 9 times out of 10, they probably go down to like Texas, right? If they're snowbirds. People in Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, they go down to Florida. And so that's the thing. It's like significant number of people here. They're not even Florida residents. They don't pay taxes in Florida. They literally came from another state to set up camp down here. And so it's just complicated, frustrating, and it makes me feel like a jerk to to deal with this luxurious problem that I have, right? Because
Mhm.
I feel like, but then again, I work my butt off to be where I'm at. You know, it's a luxurious problem to at times go 8 months without being employed, but you're still paying like 1,500, $1,600 a month, and you're still good. You still got money in the bank. You know, it's just I don't know. I just don't like where things are going. I don't want this to be like San Francisco or LA, and I don't know what I can do about it.
Time to move to the Hamptons. I
I
don't know
can
where the
afford, can afford the Hamptons.
Hamptons are.
Time to move to Mars,
Arizona.
participate in the colony.
Nobody wants to be outside in Arizona in the summertime. So no, it's probably pretty nice there. That's in Minnesota. The snowbirds go to either Florida or Arizona. Arizona's been the big one, probably more than Florida in recent years. I hear more about Arizona now than I ever did before. So what you got working then?
Yesterday, I started building out.
All right, see you, Roman.
Where am I at? Where's my bank card transaction service? Yesterday, I started working on the service for transferring funds from my Stripe base account to a connected courier account and their debit card. And so I spent yesterday looking at the Stripe documentation and writing that. I haven't tested it yet because I haven't built. I mean, I could still test it, but I haven't even built the UX on the courier app for cashing out. I'll probably do that next week. But isn't there like an operations spec on here? It's basically a transfer request that consists of from account to account. The from account has the amount that you want to send over, and it gives you a receipt. All right. And this connects to the Stripe API or whatever. So in addition to that, I wanted to demo. You already saw the demo of me like using an automated script and satisfying the fulfillment of a customer app's order. What I wanted to demo was the actual courier app emulator running along with the customer app running. Customer app places an order, and then the emulator accepts the order and then relays order status all the way to completion. But when I attempted to do a dry run an hour ago, I hit an exception. I said, F it, and I just took a break. So I'll demo that Friday. It was complaining about some zero longitude, zero latitude map. When it's a long story. It was Google Maps, and for whatever reason, it was erroring out. So
the demo gremlins.
Yeah, I mean, I've been making hella progress. I feel like the more I get done, the more infrastructure I have to build to support it, and it just keeps drawing out, right? Yeah, so because I'm dealing with money, I have to build all this infrastructure to run analytics so that I get notified of irregularities so that people don't steal from me or I catch people stealing from me. So that's still on my list of to-dos. And it's just, I want to get this thing done. All right. So that's it.
Cool. You ever do anything with Apache Kafka?
No.
So one of the cool things about my new job is that they're very upfront about, or they're being very upfront about, if you want to progress in terms of pay and titles and all that, here's the things that you need to do. Like, it's very explicit, and it's kind of cool that they have stuff like these improvement plans or whatever, where it's like, if you want to be promoted, this is what you need to do. And, everybody kind of signs on board. And so my understanding is it's a pretty easy conversation if you do all the things that are on the document that they've signed off on, saying that you'd be promoted, and you get promoted. So it's pretty neat. But in terms of the technologies that I need to kind of master to be promoted up, Kafka's on the list. I haven't touched it at all. Their plans really talk about, doing certain classes and stuff like that, or certain courses and that. But I don't know. I could watch courses, say I've done it, and regurgitate information, but until you've actually built something and felt the pains that you need to feel, you're not really a master. I don't care how much stuff you do. So
what? So you don't believe in Scrum Masters when they take their what, 1 day course and then they're a certified Scrum Master?
No, I think that is, I don't know, fine. I think we've had a conversation about Scrum Masters before, but I think that maybe the bit that gets lost with Scrum is that it's supposed to be a starting point for an evolutionary process. It's not supposed to be a fixed, here's how you do it kind of a thing. So it's whatever you feel gets satisfies the tenets of working software, and getting that stuff out the door and delivering value. And then always, constant improvement on that process. So, but
Are you going to pick up Kafka?
well, I think I have to if I want to be really successful in my new gig. I know it's supposed to be like Azure's event hubs or whatever. I'm a little worried about it just in terms of I really, it's written in Java and Scala, and I have grown to kind of loathe the grown to loathe the Java ecosystem, in terms of getting set up and all of that kind of stuff. But I don't know, Apache's okay. I don't know, but I gotta. The thing
you'd be able to talk to Kafka and it'd be language agnostic, right? Because you're just sending messages over. No.
Yeah. So I mean, we'd be writing in my job is .NET. So, but all their tools are. It's weird. All their infrastructure tools, I don't think any of them are really Microsoft tools. So they're using .NET as the programming language, but all of the infrastructure tools around it are Amazon or other. But I don't know. The thing that's kind of sucks about, like, how do you learn this stuff if you're not building out a giant, microservice scaled app?
Like me.
Yeah. Like, how do you do it? I mean, it's like, you can't just, I mean, like, you could do a one-off project and be like, yeah, I sent a message from A to B, but that's not where your problems live. Like,
Well,
the use cases that are in the docs.
You can memorize it, right? Like, you think about the university, there's people out there that are really good at memorizing.
Oh yeah.
They will pass the test, the Kafka test. The mortal people, like, you have to actually build something so that it gets burnt into your brain, right? Like, I spent an hour trying to figure out why. Do I have my Azure storage table? Spent an hour trying to figure out. I probably deleted it too. Is there a required metadata entry in here, or did I delete it? Yeah. Spent an hour trying to figure out. You see these columns? Oh, you're not even looking at my share.
Not sharing. Yeah.
I spent an hour trying to figure out why I keep hitting share audio. Trying to figure out why when I insert a record in here, I know it's empty, but when I would insert a record in here, it'll have every field per column except for amount. The amount was always missing, and I needed that, right? And I'm like, why? I don't understand. So I'm going through like 2 different apps and 1 backend service trying to figure out why this amount field is missing from this table, when clearly, like, I see the entity value is amount, but it's not being reflected in the database. When I save it, I spend an hour to figure out that decimals aren't supported as a data type.
Oh.
And the only supported data type that entertains decimal places is a double, right? So it took me an hour to figure that out. The reason why I mention all this is because I promise you, I'll never forget that trivia item, right? And so it got burned into my brain because I felt the pain of not knowing what the F was going on, right?
Yeah.
Some people that Harvard and whatever other Ivy League schools, not even Ivy League, they just know how to memorize stuff.
But yeah,
they'll probably get in trouble when it comes time to building something that wasn't in the test for you to know. You just have to learn it through hard knocks.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got the ability to absorb information. And what is it? Is it didactic memory? No, it's not didactic. It's something like that. It's there's a specific term where they can see something once and they'll know it. They'll be able to like
Photographic
reimagine
memory?
it. Yeah, the photographic memory or whatever.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
I have photographic memory for traumatic events like my father dying and when I almost drowned like 5 years ago. Like I replayed it a lot.
Those are flashbulb, or they call them like flashbulb memories or something like that. Where
Okay.
they're, and I mean, if you ever watched Disney Pixar's, gosh, what is the thing? Disney Pixar's, I want to say Soul, but Soul was the current one. Crap, what was it? Anyways, they did this one where they have like
Story.
they have like these emotions in this person's brain, and they have like sadness and joy and anger and stuff like that, but they have memories, these key memories or whatever that are in their brain, and that's kind of the same concept as like or core memories is what they called them, but flashbulb, like anytime there's a big huge event, like you can kind of like do you remember where you were when you heard about 9/11?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. Same with me. I know exactly.
I was in community college for my computer systems design class, and someone had came into the front door, interrupted the instructor, and told us we needed to leave the campus like now. Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, like I remember getting ready that morning and going to school, and I remember I was in history class, Euro history class, and that's where the TV was on. And it's like, oh, a plane hit the World Trade, like stuff like that. You don't forget because it had such an impactful moment.
It's the same thing with like PTSD, right? Like you can't get away
Yeah,
from whatever traumatic event, and then you fight for that not to be your identity, but you keep dwelling on those thoughts. So it goes from like, how's it go? Your mood to your there's three stages: mood, temperament, and personality, right? And so you're trying to like prevent that temperament to be your personality, right?
You're clicking a lot, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, something's clicking a lot.
Doing it? That's the sound?
Does it? Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. So anyways. Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna become an expert at these kinds of things.
Rewrite my beach delivery app. There you go.
Yeah. Well, it's like one of them's New Relic, and I can watch some videos on there, but the only practical experience I'll get with New Relic is actually on the job, probably.
It's analytics, right? That's what New Relic is.
Yeah, like application performance monitoring.
And that's is Datadog a competitor of it?
I don't know. Let me see. New Relic competitors. Dynatrace came up. Oh, here's a Gartner report on AM. Whatever. No. Oh, what the hell? Top New Relic competitors and alternatives by Gartner Insights. Datadog is one of them. You're right. AWS, Dynatrace, Splunk. I don't consider Splunk. Maybe they've got that. No, I don't think some of these are. I'm guessing Datadog is pretty. Yeah, they're APM. So. I don't know.
How do you feel about that stuff? Because isn't that stuff like, and maybe I'm just thinking about, I forgot the App Insights is another competitor, right? Um,
Probably the Azure one.
yeah, the app insights, like you kind of hard code it to log information within your business logic. And so this is the whole conversation of like aspect oriented programming. You're familiar with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, you know, you're supposed to have single responsibility for whatever method or function, but then you're sprinkling in all these aspects like logging, security, etc. And it starts to obfuscate the focus of what that function or method was intended for. And so that's the part where I don't like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Breaking
But
up cross-cutting concerns into a separate
yeah,
area.
but if you're doing like event sourcing, then and maybe this is kind of where Kafka may be useful, is you're just publishing events. Your service bus is going to dish out the data from those events to the subscribers, and then your subscribers can be a domain that's responsible for security. Your subscribers can be a domain that's responsible for analytics. And I think it works better on the event-driven system.
Yeah. Well, some of that, like the APM stuff, like New Relic will do like tracing and performance tracing and stuff like that. So it will measure every single request and calls within to methods within those requests. So you can drill in and say, okay, during peak hours, this is the method that's giving us trouble or whatever. But that's all transient to you. You just register New Relic and it taps into stuff that's already there for the most part. But
I mean,
there is events that you can publish out to it. Because I've hit the spot in have you ever hit this in coding? So if you're explicit about what you're doing, and you get into a case where like a mapping will fail or where a mapping fails or like there's something that you are able to observe in the code because of validation or because of whatever, where the application is going to be in a bad state if this happens. And I don't know why my kids are screaming at each other, but you know that it's going to be in a bad state, but what do you do with that information? Like, how do you, like, this shouldn't happen. So it's an exceptional situation, but you know about it. You're in the situation where you can capture that. It's better to do something explicit with that and hand it off to something where you're going to be told about it, so you can capture those errors early and often, rather than having them propagate over and wait for something to come. And I think that's where, aside from just performance monitoring and stuff like that, I think that's where those events and sprinkling those in. But I agree. I don't know if I don't know if I understand the point of aspect oriented programming and separating out those concerns, but I feel like unless you mix them in, you lose a lot of context whenever you're doing development. So, or whenever you get them, like, I don't know. I don't know how you write like very specific details about what might have happened when all you're doing is putting a generic logger around it that logs the inputs. I suppose you can retrace it, but if you can observe this scenario where it happens up front, I don't know why you wouldn't.
like my whole thing is I want to preserve the single responsibility of that block of code in regards to the business objective. And so you have these aspects, and like, I mean, one way to like not obfuscate that business objective within that block of code is to just attach a property or an attribute to that block. Hence, you could attach an attribute to a class, a namespace, a method. That's one way. And then like maybe when that block of code executes and there's some exception that's thrown or there's some threshold that has been observed in regards to performance time or whatever, then maybe a call stack can be attached, and whatever local values are in that block, and that just gets posted to or logged to some server, and that's it. But I don't know. I just think like, at what point do you give up readable code to have a mission critical system that, if you need to get into the devil in the details, you can. Now, there has to be a better solution, and I can only think of attributes as being like a candidate. Right?
Well, I don't know. So maybe here's the thing on it. The important part of your code, the stuff that's actually worth reading or that's relevant, is your domain code. Everything else is just infrastructure, right? It's just how you deal with that. So like, you could keep all that stuff out of your domain logic or whatever, domain code, and put it just at the application layer, and you're not like,
hey Roman, hey Super Cooper,
like, you're not affecting anything. So I mean,
I agree with that. So you're saying put it on the edges, put it in your UX logic, and in your, well, basically put it in your IO logic, whether it's rendering or data gateway.
yeah. I mean,
because in your domain code, if you subscribe to the whole programming to the best of your ability, illegal states being unrepresentable, like you really shouldn't have any exceptions if you model your function signatures or your method signatures correctly, right? It shouldn't compile if you get to that point. So okay, I'm with that.
Yeah, like stuff where I'd be concerned is like if you pull data out of the database, and the data that you pull out doesn't produce a valid representation in the domain, because something's like, how do you deal with that scenario? For instance, you're making a call, and maybe it's even a off of a message handler or something, so there's no user actually interacting with it. You get an entity ID, and you're going to go pull that entity ID to do some sort of update based on the message event that you've received off of a queue, right? So you pull that out and you try to produce a domain representation, but the data itself has been for whatever reason has been corrupted in some way. Now you're left with the situation. How do I handle this? There's no user that I can feed this back to alert me. There's no if I throw an exception, that'll be in the logs. No one's going to hear about that. This is important because why else would I be doing it? And so on and so forth. So it seems like the best, like, having some sort of tool that you can spit off to an event and saying, hey, this something that I didn't expect, shouldn't happen at all, just happened, and I don't know why. Or here's the details around it. And I think logging isn't the best place for that. Again, like, logging it in addition to notifying someone is probably a good thing, but having a channel to outlet those kinds of scenarios where something went wrong that could go wrong, but is important to fix, is I think nice to have. I've hit this.
Your service bus. Sorry for cutting you off. Your service bus. You have don't you have like poison letters or dead letters or something like that? Where it gets archived for like manual intervention, and then you can potentially have a resolution for that, right? So you have a resolution for that corrupted data that somehow systematically gets picked up and then gets fed into the workflow system or whatever. I mean, that's high level. But then the question, which leads to the question of, does everything really need to be automated, right? And so if 99.9% of that mission critical system works, right, without any type of flaws or corrupted data, then is it okay to have manual intervention for that 0.01%?
Oh yeah.
whatever the math
But
is.
manual intervention requires that you know about it, and that's the whole point of a lot of these tools is to make sure that when stuff does go wrong, you know about it. And I think, yeah, I mean the message thing, like dead letters are or error cues. I've seen both, but dead letter in terms of I think you can attach context to the dead letter and pass it along, but that way. And you could configure I suppose you should be able to configure your APM to monitor that and then go. I've seen it like in my last job, they wrote tools to actually go and retrieve dead letters and handle them or to bring it up to someone. So I don't know, maybe it doesn't handle that very well.
And then after a while, you probably do, if you have a mature business, you probably do want to do root cause analysis as to why this data got corrupted.
Yeah.
And then maybe the idea of chaos engineering is going to kick in so that you prevent that one corruption point from ever entering the system again. Not to say that there's not others, right? Have you ever worked in a shop that had I'm not sure what the term is, but like bug fests, or not even bug fests, but like they would plan, well, maybe a bug fest, yeah, where they
We've
would.
had bug sprints or we've swarmed bugs before.
Well, what about just breaking the software?
Oh, yeah, a chaos engineering or whatever.
Well, a day or a week where they literally want to do as much destruction to that software as possible.
No, I haven't, but it sounds like fun. I'd find so much. I'm really good at breaking software for some reason. Like I should really be like a QA person probably, but I'd get paid a lot less.
Yeah, I was going to say you're going to even SDETs get paid less than developers, and the SDET is a developer and a QA person. Like,
yeah, I don't understand that kind of stuff. But yeah, the like I have a knack for I don't know, observing software and seeing and digging into something. Like a lot of people I know will, like, if they see something, they either don't know that it's wrong or they'll brush it off. And I see it and I go, something isn't right about this, and I have to investigate it down. And a lot of times that's a problem. I got kudos my first week because we found out there was a bug that there was a bunch of developers looking at, and they couldn't reproduce it. And that evening, I actually was able to reproduce it in QA just by tinkering around with it for, I don't know, 20 minutes or something like that. So once I understood the problem well enough, being there a week, it didn't take long for me to break it. But I wrote that off as, well, maybe it's because I don't know the right way to use the software yet. So I'm in this unique position where, since I don't know how to use it, I'm doing everything wrong, which is probably what other users are doing. Like when you're intimate with a program, it's hard to interact with it in ways that are outside of what you programmed yourself.
If you developed it, like, that happened to me. I wrote an application, and they've been preparing to deploy it to production for I think 2 months now. And as soon as QA got their hands on it, they find all these edge cases. And I'm like, well, my typical response is like, that wasn't captured in the requirements. It's not a bug. Works as designed. Even though I know they're right. But yeah, like, once someone that isn't really intimate with it, like, they could find all types of edge cases. And like with me, I just never thought about it because I already had my mental model of how it works.
Yeah. I think I have this knack for thinking through edge cases pretty well, and it's actually
when you build it though.
Yeah, when I build it,
because I have a hard time decoupling creative or exploratory testing with something that I built myself, because I'm already pre-programmed. My subconscious goes through the motions without me even thinking about anything. Like,
yeah, no, see, I have that, and this isn't necessary. I mean, this is, in some cases, it's like a superpower to be able to just imagine edge cases up the wazoo. But when there's a lot of them, or it can be really daunting. Like I regularly get into a place where if software has too many edge cases, like I can't like focus in to just solve the main problem, because I'm like, well, this is going to be breakable in so many ways. I don't want to write breakable software. So there's this like struggle that goes on. If you can see, like, here's all the ways that this thing can break, but I'm only supposed to code this much. Like, I don't know if you've run into that struggle, but it's painful.
I run into.
I get a mental block.
I run into working on a code base that I didn't write, and there's no thoughtful contracts of the methods that were written, right? So, like, I mean, look, like, pay respect, domain modeling made functional by Scott Blashen. Like, I'll look at a method signature and I'll say this can fail in so many ways. Like, especially after this completes and the client wants to move on, like, this isn't solid. Like, this doesn't. We're not returning a qualified or promoted structure that, again, reduces the number of edge cases. And, like, I'll see that only because I've been educated to think like that, right? But when I inherit a code base, I feel like there's nothing I can really do but be that person that already have a habit of being that tells other people how effed up their code is. And it's like, I'm not really in a position of time or influence to do it, to correct it the way that I think it should be corrected, because the business says, we don't care. We just need this to be out, right, and working. And it all goes back to, well, design reduces risk, but when money's on the line and people are getting paid by the hour and customers are waiting, like, I guess people no longer care about design. They care about making money by any means necessary, as long as it's ethical. Yeah. And so that's kind of like the tug of war that I have, is life would be so much easier and we would have less conversations and meetings and expenses related to it if we did design, because design is the same thing as test in a perspective of they both reduce risk. But it's like, I don't know, man. Like, people aren't philosophical, man. They just write code.
Yeah. So you don't subscribe to the contractor's credo?
How's that work?
If you can't solve a problem, then there's good money to be made in prolonging it as long as possible. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I agree with it. I mean, that's why there's still C++ programmers. That's why there's still Java programmers, right? How much code, how much time, how much of the budget is consumed of them actually producing a solution? And then how much of that budget is consumed of them troubleshooting why the solution that they attempted to implement doesn't work, right? And it's the latter part that absorbs most of the budget. And I would argue that technology could alter that percentage, that ratio. But no, we want to program this in a 40-year-old, hence C++, it's probably older than that, or a 20-year-old programming language that addressed the problems of 4 decades ago, but not modern times. And so it's like, yeah, I think that today people employ themselves by using antiquated languages that is job security. Things are effed up, man. We need to have more SpaceX companies that do things out in the open and it has transparency.
I'm sure they're doing stuff just as crappy as the rest of us. Although, when you get into safety engineering, I think anybody who gets into safety engineering, that's a whole different ball game. Like,
I wonder how they do chaos engineering there. They have to. They have
probably. Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if you've looked at safety engineering at all. Like the things that they'll do, like in aircraft, like they'll do, for instance, like to do a calculation. They might write that calculation in like 5 different languages and run them on, 10 different boxes. And then what they do is they check all the calculations from all the individual, and I'm maybe overstating it, but they'll gather all the results from those 10 different running things, and then they'll figure out whether they agree with each other, and they'll throw out the edge ones or whatever, so that there's no single point of failure on any of it. It's all consensus among many versions of the same thing. It's really
you're talking about in production.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they have to code it. They have to engineer it this way, because I mean, if you get on an airplane, if you get one calculation incorrect, that's the death of everybody on board, right? So they have to make sure that they're very, very sure that when they do a calculation that it's correct. So they'll write it across, they'll not only engineer it and test each individual module and make it correct, but then at runtime, they actually have multiple systems that check upon each other to make sure that those things are correct. It's really neat.
Isn't that called a software oracle or something?
That might be. I don't know if there's a specific name for it, but it's really neat in terms of that. But I don't know if I'd ever want to be in a situation where I'm programming for safety. One of my coworkers that I worked with, she worked for a company that worked on airplanes or systems for airplanes. And she told me, she's like, every time there was a crash, she had to go and check the specs of the crash to see if it was something that she wrote that caused the crash. She couldn't get away from it, that fear that, she wrote a line of code that failed some system that caused this to go down. So I don't think I'd ever want to be in that situation. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
God bless those programmers.
You have to admit that it's shared responsibility, right? It would be hard to live as the sole reason why airplane went down and lost 300 people. It would be hard to live with that if you were the sole person responsible for it. But if there is a committee and you're part of that committee, given your responsibility and then other members of that committee's responsibility, then it's a little bit easier, with emphasis on a little bit easier to live with, that you're not solely responsible for people being fatherless, motherless, sonless, daughterless, multiplied by 300.
Yeah, but it's maybe the same effect as when, like, I don't know if you've had anybody in your life commit suicide, but it's probably the same thing. Like, well, maybe if I had just done something a little bit different, or like if I had been a little more careful, or you'd probably second guess yourself a lot, even though you probably don't have any particular impact on that person's decision whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, no, I haven't been in that situation.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something that I could relate to.
But diffusal of responsibility is, I mean, it's a thing. Like, if you can spread that responsibility around, but still, if it came down to, like, if it was traced back to this line of code that you with your own fingers wrote, it doesn't matter the rest of the way all up the chain. I think you'd feel bad.
I wonder how the person or the team that wrote the system for Boeing's workaround to compensate for their engines that are hella big. I wonder what they're going through.
No, yeah.
Because you gotta remember, like, people's brain chemistries are different, man. Some people like, oh, damn, my bad, and then other people, like, they can't live with it. Like their mind won't let them continue living with that burden of responsibility that they cause.
Yeah, highly empathetic people.
Yeah.
That's why they'll never be CEOs. Isn't it? That's true though. Like, a certain percentage of CEOs are sociopaths or something like that, or that's like the number one profession for sociopaths.
Is that why?
Like brain surgeons.
Why the majority of them are men?
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. That got dark.
Yeah. No, I probably should hang it up anyways, get some more coffee before I jump onto stand up here. So
yeah, I think I'm gonna play my Spider-Man. I'm enjoying my PlayStation 5, man. It's
is it good?
it's night and day. I mean, it was a learning curve for like maybe a couple hours to learn PlayStation because I haven't had a PlayStation since like PlayStation 2. But it's night and day between that and my Xbox One. I think I want to donate my Xbox One to homeless people. If because I don't have a reason. I just bought the same game for my PlayStation that I already owned for Xbox One.
Even Halo Wars, which is an exclusive.
No. Is I repurchased Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, just because the graphics are so much more crisper on my PlayStation 5. I was like, all right, I'll pay another $60 or whatever. Yeah. And I thought I was going to lose all of my state, like all the weapons and accessories. But no, like the Call of Duty game keeps track of all that. I thought when I purchased it on a completely different platform, I would have to start over and build my rank up again. But no, they still require you to sign in and all that other stuff. So
yeah,
all right, I'll let you go.
Alrighty. See you next.
See you, Roman. See you, Super Cooper. See you, whoever the other observer is. I'm out.
Chip, bye.
Getting in broadcast, unless you guys have any comments or questions in the next 30 seconds, I am terminating this Masterminds session, volume 91. Who would have known it would be 91 sessions? Yeah. 15 seconds. All right, see you, Roman. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4, 1, 1.5, 1 3/4. All right, I'm out. See you.